People love to argue about what real rest looks like. For some, it's loud parties, crowded apartments, strangers passing bottles around while music pounds through the walls and alcohol flows like a river. I've been there, more than once, and every single time it ended the same way. A splitting headache, missing memories, and that empty, rotten feeling the next morning. That kind of fun never gave me anything. I'm the opposite. Give me silence. Give me trees. Give me a place so far from the city that the noise can't reach it. That's where I reset. So, when a lucky coincidence turned an ordinary week into 4 full days off, thanks to a holiday landing right next to the weekend, I knew exactly what I wanted. 4 days alone. No coworkers, no phone calls, no small talk. Just me, some downloaded movies, a little booze, and nature. Sitting in my city apartment felt like a waste. I needed out. So I started scrolling through rental listings, looking for a small cabin somewhere deep in the countryside. There was only one condition. I love fishing. A lake or a pond nearby wasn't optional. It was mandatory. After checking a few sites, one listing instantly caught my eye. The description said the cabin was far from any other buildings, completely isolated. And right next to it, a crystal clear pond. The photos sealed the deal. The house itself was simple but solid. A real log cabin. But the pond looked unreal. Perfectly round, clean, grassy banks, a sturdy wooden pier stretching into the water. Looked calm, peaceful, almost staged. The price made it even harder to resist, about $30 a day. And since I was going alone, it felt like a steal. I booked it immediately. By Wednesday evening, everything was packed. I changed out of my office clothes, threw my bag into the trunk, slung my fishing rods over my shoulder, and hit the road. The drive took about 3 hours. The last hour was nothing but a dirt road cutting through dense forest. No street lights, no houses, just trees closing in from both sides. By the time I arrived, it was already late. The cabin stood exactly where the owner said it would. The key was waiting for me in a small metal lockbox screwed into the wall. No contact, no neighbors, no questions. Inside, the place was basic, but clean. A small kitchen, 1 bedroom, a storage room. I was exhausted. The mix of a full workday and a long drive hit me all at once. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. I didn't want to miss the morning bite, and passed out almost instantly. When the alarm went off, I woke up smiling. For once, I wasn't heading to a suffocating office. I was heading to a quiet pond, hidden in the woods. Coffee, a quick breakfast, fishing gear over my shoulder. The owner said the pond was a 5-minute walk, straight down a narrow path behind the cabin. And he was right. The trail was barely visible, pressed down into tall grass. There was only one path, no turns. A minute later, the forest opened up, and that's when I saw it. The pond was even more beautiful than in the photos, perfectly circular, surrounded by thick forest on all sides. The water was so clear, it looked fake, like glass poured into a hole in the earth. No reeds, no lilies, no insects skimming the surface, just stillness. The pier stretched about 10 feet into the water. As I stepped onto it, I watched the bottom closely. Near the edge, the water was shallow, less than a meter deep. But after a few steps, it dropped off. Fast. So fast it didn't make sense. By the end of the pier, the bottom vanished into darkness. I remember thinking one thing very clearly. There's no way this pond is natural. I stood at the edge of the pier, staring down. The water was impossibly clear. So clear that I could see the bottom near the shore without any effort. Soft earth, patches of dark green algae, nothing unusual. But right where the pier ended, the bottom just disappeared. Not gradually, not like a normal slope. It dropped straight down. I squinted, leaning forward, trying to make out anything below. The sunlight reached deep, deeper than it had any right to. Yet after a certain point, there was only black. No silt, no rocks, just emptiness. My gut tightened. This wasn't some massive lake. The entire pond couldn't have been more than 100 feet across. There was no way it should be this deep. Still, curiosity won. I set up my float rod first, adjusted the line, 5 meters, 6. The float barely dipped. I cast and waited. Nothing. Not even the usual tiny movements. No nibbling, no twitches. It was like I'd dropped the hook into a swimming pool. I waited almost 2 hours. The float never moved. That's when the boredom crept in, and with it, a bad idea. I switched to my spinning rod, clipped on a heavy lure, took a breath, cast. The lure hit the water and sank, and sank. The braided line slid off the reel smoothly at first, then faster, way too fast. I watched in silence as the spool kept turning. 10 seconds, 20. My stomach dropped. I looked at the reel and felt my blood run cold. The line was almost gone. I had 100 meters on that spool. There is no F-king way. Right in the center of that pond was something else entirely. A shaft, a hole, a goddamn well. I snapped the bail shut and started reeling in. That's when I felt it. A sharp, sudden jerk. Instinct kicked in. I set the hook hard. Whatever was on the other end didn't move. No thrashing, no pulling. Just wait. Like I'd hooked the bottom. But I knew I hadn't. Then the line yanked again. Harder. I tried to muscle it in, but the drag screamed in protest, dumping line back into the water. That wasn't a fish. That was something anchored. I cursed under my breath, convinced it was a snag. Pulled off my shirt, wrapped the line around my hand, and started pulling manually. Slow, controlled. More force. That's when something yanked back. Violently, the pier vanished beneath my feet. The next thing I knew, I was in the water. The cold was unreal. It wasn't just cold, it burned. Like plunging into ice, like knives against my skin. For a split second, panic took over. Then survival kicked in. I grabbed the edge of the pier, hauled myself up, coughing, gasping, heart slamming against my ribs. I sat there, soaked and shaking, staring into the water. The pond looked the same as before. Still, silent. Like nothing had happened. I packed up without another cast. Back at the cabin, I tried to shake it off. Spent the day watching shows, eating, killing time. That night, I lit a fire, drank some wine, stared at the stars. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop thinking about that pull. It didn't feel like a fish. It felt like something testing me. The next morning, I went back. Not because I wanted to, because I needed answers. This time, I brought heavier gear, a rod rated for serious weight, and over 200 meters of line that could handle more than 100 pounds. I walked around the pond first, scanning the shoreline. That's when I noticed something else. No fry, no tadpoles, no insects skimming the surface. Nothing lived near that water. When I stepped back onto the pier and lifted my rod, I froze. In the center of the pond, something was floating, just beneath the surface. Long, thick. At first I thought it was a log, and that's when I realized that was exactly what it wanted me to think. I stood there, frozen, staring at the center of the pond. The object wasn't fully submerged. It hovered about 3 feet below the surface, thick and motionless. A log. That's what my brain insisted it was. Roughly 10 feet long, dark brown, almost black, with a sickly green tint from algae clinging to it. It didn't drift, didn't rotate, it just hung there, right above the darkest part of the water. I told myself it made sense. Trees fall, logs sink. This one probably got waterlogged and caught on something deep below. Still, my hands were shaking as I cast. It took 5 tries before I managed to snag it. The line went tight. Slowly, too slowly, the log began moving toward me. No splashing, no resistance, like it was letting me pull it. When it reached the edge of the pier, I lifted it just enough to see the surface. The bark was thick, swollen, blackened by long exposure to water. Between the cracks, something grew. Not moss, something brighter. A vivid, unnatural green with a faint purple shimmer. I'd never seen anything like it. Then I noticed the end of the log. It wasn't rounded. There was a split. Clean. Precise. A long crack running from the tip, almost a third of the way down. Too symmetrical. Too deliberate. I leaned closer. That's when the log started sinking. The rod bent sharply, the blank curving under insane tension. I planted my feet, grabbed the handle with both hands and pulled back. The pull answered. I was yanked forward so hard the world flipped upside down. The water swallowed me. Again. The cold hit instantly. A brutal, paralyzing shock. My lungs seized. I opened my eyes underwater by instinct. That was a mistake. The log was no longer a log. The split had opened. Wide. It wasn't a crack. It was a mouth. A massive, gaping maw lined with crooked growths. Not teeth, but jagged, branch-like spikes. Some no longer than a finger. Others as long as my forearm. They weren't rigid. They flexed. The green growths along its body unfurled, spreading like fins, pushing against the water with slow, deliberate movements. It wasn't swimming. It was hovering. Waiting. I didn't even realize I was moving until my chest slammed into the pier. Hands grabbed my collar and yanked me upward. I burst out of the water, choking, lungs on fire. I collapsed onto the planks, coughing violently. When I looked up, there was an old man standing over me. Short. Lean. Wrapped in a battered camouflage jacket. A double-barrel shotgun rested on his shoulder, like it weighed nothing. He peered into the water, expression calm, almost tired. Then he spit into the pond. The creature hesitated. For a long moment, it hung there beneath the surface. Then, slowly, it sank back into the darkness. The man finally looked at me. "Name's Mitch," he said. "Local ranger." He nodded toward the pond. "And that thing almost had you." Mitch didn't ask if I was okay. He just jerked his head toward the path. "Let's move," he said, "before it gets curious again." I didn't argue. My legs felt like rubber. My clothes were still soaked, but adrenaline carried me forward. We walked fast, not running, but not slow either, like prey pretending it isn't scared. Back at the cabin, Mitch stepped inside like he owned the place. He leaned the shotgun against the wall, reached into his worn canvas pack, and pulled out a bottle of cheap whiskey. 2 metal cups. He poured without measuring. "Drink," he said. I did. The burn hit hard, and then the warmth followed. The shaking finally stopped. I looked at him. What the hell was that thing? Mitch didn't answer right away. He stared out the window, watching the tree line. "Depends," he said finally. "You want folklore or the truth?" "I'll take whatever keeps me alive." That earned a dry chuckle. "My granddad warned me about that pond when I was a kid," he began. "Said people go missing there. Not sometimes. Regularly." I felt my stomach knot. He said there are things in that water that pretend to be something else. Logs, roots, whole damn trees. They wait until you touch them. Mitch took a sip. I didn't believe him. None of us did. He leaned back, eyes unfocused. "When I was 16, me and 3 buddies went out there. Thought we'd mess around, throw rocks, prove the old man wrong. One of his friends, Ethan, spotted a log near the shore. 'Just a rotten stump,' he said. Stepped on it. Mitch swallowed. It opened. The others froze. Ethan didn't even have time to scream. The water just took him. We ran, never went back. I realized I'd been holding my breath. "Why don't they leave the pond?" I asked. "Why stay there?" Mitch shook his head. "Don't need to. People come to them." That's when I asked the question that had been eating at me. The pier, the cabin. Who built them? Mitch's jaw tightened. The owner. Says it makes the place more attractive. I felt sick. So people rent this place, and some of them never leave. Mitch didn't deny it. "Most do," he said. "Water's too cold for swimming. Saves a lot of lives." He stood up, grabbed the shotgun. "You're lucky I stopped by today. I check this place when I hear someone new moved in." I asked him if anyone had ever tried to kill it. He laughed. "Kill it? Son, we don't even know how deep that thing goes." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Pack your stuff," he said. "Leave today." "What about warning others?" Mitch met my eyes. "No one believes warnings," he said quietly. "They believe experiences." Then he stepped outside. I didn't argue with Mitch. I packed fast. No breakfast, no coffee. Just wet clothes, shaking hands, and the constant feeling that I was being watched through the windows. When I slammed the trunk shut and got into the car, my heart was still racing. The engine started on the first try. I reversed out of the clearing and hit the dirt road without looking back. At least, not right away. The forest swallowed the cabin almost immediately. Trees closed in, branches scraping against the car like fingers. That's when I checked the rearview mirror. The pond was still visible through the trees. And something was wrong. The surface wasn't smooth anymore. Right in the center, where the water had always been perfectly still, there was a disturbance. A slow, circular ripple. As if something massive had just shifted beneath it. Then I saw it. That familiar shape, long, dark, rising, not breaking the surface, just close enough to remind me it was there. Watching. Waiting. I floored the gas. The forest road felt endless. Every shadow looked like it was moving. Every bump made my chest tighten. When I finally reached the highway, I pulled over and threw up. I never reported the cabin. Never left a review. What would I even say? Hey, great place, but the pond has something living in it that pretends to be logs and eats people? No one would believe me, but I still think about it. About how perfectly round that pond was. About how something that deep shouldn't exist in a place that small. And sometimes, late at night, when I close my eyes, I swear I can still feel that pull. Like it never let go. Like it's still waiting for someone else to lean a little too far over the water. If this story made you uncomfortable, good. That means you were paying attention. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write in the comments, would you dare to fish there? Because some places don't forgive curiosity.